Do you remember the boy who was abandoned by his family? This is how his life turned out 20 years later. In the early spring of 2003, a convoy of British peacekeeping soldiers entered a remote village in Bosnia, tasked with patrolling the surrounding region and offering support to locals still recovering from years of conflict. Among them was a young corporal named Wayne Ingram, who had seen his share of hardship. He was there to maintain order, but neither he nor his comrades expected to stumble upon a story so poignant that it would capture hearts for decades to come. Wayne first spotted the boy, thin, unkempt, and around 4 years old, in front of a dilapidated stone house. The child sat by himself, toying with small stones in the dust. From a distance, Wayne noticed something unusual about the boy's face. His nose appeared split in two, and his eyes were set far apart, creating a startling look that was both heartbreaking and mesmerizing. As Wayne and another soldier approached, the boy glanced up for a second, then fixed his gaze on the ground, as though ashamed or afraid. Stefan Savic is a young boy with a severe craniofacial deformity who was abandoned by his immediate family. Rumors suggest his mother died shortly after his birth, and his father vanished. Distant relatives with limited means offer him only minimal care and hope someone else will take responsibility for him. Wayne, a soldier moved by the child's plight, regularly visits Stefan, ultimately coaxing a small smile from him by gifting a paper plane. That little exchange was the moment Wayne realized he could not simply leave this boy to his fate. "I had 2 children of my own back in England," he later recalled. "Every time I looked at Stefan, I saw how easily it could have been my own child." He promised himself he would find a way to secure medical help for the boy. However, with limited resources in the region of Bosnia, still struggling after war, specialized surgeries for craniofacial conditions were practically unheard of. The local clinic could do little more than check for infections and provide some pain relief. Stefan's situation worsened as the months wore on. The cleft extended so far that it threatened his sinus passages, and his eyes began drifting even further apart. At times, he found it difficult to see what lay directly in front of him. Despite these issues, the cousins caring for him showed minimal concern. They were not cruel at heart, but they had their own economic struggles and believed Stefan's condition was beyond any local remedy. By the time Wayne's tour of duty ended, he had grown close to Stefan, bringing small gifts, a soccer ball, a warm blanket for winter, and simple foods to ensure the child got proper nutrition. The two shared an unspoken bond. Wayne spoke hardly any Bosnian, and Stefan's speech was affected by the facial deformity, but they communicated through hand gestures, pointing to objects and occasionally laughing over silly cartoons Wayne managed to show him on a portable DVD player. On the night before Wayne returned to England, he promised Stefan he would not forget him. Months passed. Back in the UK, Wayne found it hard to get Stefan off of his mind. He made phone calls to charities, posted about the situation on online forums, and tried to gather donations from friends. For a while, he encountered one discouraging response after another. The operation needed to correct Stefan's condition was complex, requiring a specialized craniofacial surgical team. The cost estimate soared into tens of thousands of pounds. Moreover, Stefan had no passport, no official birth certificate, and no stable guardian who could sign consent forms. Nevertheless, Wayne persisted. "I remembered the look in that boy's eyes," he later said. "I couldn't just ignore that." Eventually, with the help of a small British charity dedicated to aiding children from conflict zones, Wayne launched a fundraising campaign. He posted photos of Stefan's face, explaining the severity of the condition and the risk that, if untreated, the boy might lose his vision or suffer chronic respiratory problems. The response was slow at first, but gradually, as more people became aware of the story, donations trickled in. The turning point came when renowned craniofacial surgeon Dr. Dana Wade learned about Stefan's situation and offered to perform surgery at a significantly reduced cost, persuading her hospital to waive additional fees. Concurrently, a volunteer legal team tackled bureaucratic challenges, including obtaining Stefan's Bosnian passport, establishing guardianship, and organizing transport. Finally, 2 years after Wayne's departure from Bosnia, Stefan arrived in the UK, accompanied by a charity escort and one of his cousins. Wayne greeted them at the airport, and the exhausted 6-year-old recognized him, shyly smiling upon seeing the familiar face. The first surgery took place a few weeks later. Dr. Wade led a team in a marathon 12-hour operation, removing excess bone, reorienting Stefan's facial structure, and beginning the process of reconstructing his nose and the orbits around his eyes. Stefan spent a long time under anesthesia, and Wayne admitted he was terrified the entire day, pacing the hospital corridors until the surgeon finally emerged to say the procedure had gone well. Over the next 6 months, Stefan underwent 2 more operations, each further redefining his facial alignment and ensuring he could breathe properly. During his recovery, Stefan stayed in a small flat that Wayne arranged for near the hospital. The cousin soon returned to Bosnia, meaning the boy had no direct family with him. Legally, the charity stepped in as an official guardian with Wayne's help. The hospital staff adored Stefan's sweet demeanor and resilience. Though he still could not speak English fluently, he enthusiastically picked up new words, delighting in the chance to watch cartoons and read simple children's books. For many supporters, the transformation was astonishing. Each surgery drastically reduced the gap between Stefan's eyes and helped him form a more typical nose bridge. Gone was the unnatural wedge that once prevented him from seeing properly. With every success, donors, volunteers, and well-wishers cheered, sending letters and small presents. Wayne, in particular, felt as though he had gained an extended family as people from all over contributed to Stefan's new life. Eventually, Stefan's face healed enough that he began venturing outside regularly. Short trips to a local park, visits to the library, strolls around the neighborhood. He no longer attracted glares or remarks of shock. Instead, he occasionally received curious smiles. He did bear scars and needed an additional minor procedure to align his teeth, but the difference in how people responded was profound. The boy who once cowered from neighbors calling him a monster felt something like normality for the first time. After 2 years in England, Stefan returned to Bosnia and settled with a supportive foster family in a nearby town. With ongoing assistance from Wayne and the charity through a trust set up for his medical and educational needs, Stefan thrived. He played soccer, joined youth clubs, returned to school, and discovered a passion for music. 20 years later, Stefan is a confident, smiling young man in his mid-20s, teaching music part-time and volunteering with an NGO that supports children with craniofacial differences, transformed from the shy boy Wayne first met. Stefan often reflects on how, for all intents and purposes, he was abandoned by the very people who should have cared for him from birth, his biological parents. But he bears them no resentment now. He's found a new sense of family in the fosters who guided him through school and in the soldier who refused to forget him. Every year, Wayne visits Bosnia, and the two share a meal, reminiscing about how improbable their connection once seemed. Stefan jokes that Wayne is the father figure he never had, while Wayne calls Stefan his third son from another land. Looking at him today, you'd scarcely believe the hardships Stefan endured. The boy once ridiculed as a monstrosity is now recognized as a testament to compassion and perseverance. His deep brown eyes, now aligned like anyone else's, sparkle with warmth. The parted nose is replaced by a reconstructed feature that suits his face naturally. If you look closely, you can see the faint lines where surgeons worked their miracles, but they serve only as gentle reminders of what he overcame. This is how Stefan's life turned out 20 years later, a life that once seemed destined for anguish and neglect, instead transformed into a journey of hope. He stands as living proof that a single act of kindness, like a soldier's pledge to help an abandoned child, can ripple across decades. Sometimes we dismiss the power of an everyday promise, but in Stefan's case, that promise defined his future. And in doing so, it reminds all of us that even in the midst of turmoil, there's room for compassion to take root and flourish, changing not just one life, but the entire world around it.